October 17th meeting of the Raleigh Appearance Commission. The commission is charged with providing guidance, advice, recommendations regarding the visual and aesthetic characteristics of the city of Raleigh. The members of the commission are volunteers who are dedicated to the quality of design in Raleigh and represent a varied field of expertise. We will have staff review our staff reports today, and that'll happen prior to the applicant's presentation, and we'll identify administrative alternate findings that the applicant will need to address. For applicants presenting cases this afternoon, we ask that you take no more than 10 minutes to present your case, and when you arrive at the podium, you're reminded to state your name and address for the record. Once you present your case, including all the required items, the commission may ask you to come back up and for questions, and then we'll table it for further discussion. After that discussion, the commission will set forth a recommendation to the planning director for a final determination. All right, we're going to start the agenda today. We have a special kind of proceeding to begin with. Is the mayor here to speak? All right, there she is. You snuck in. All right, thank you.
Now I see how hard it is on this side. Thank you all for giving me a few minutes, and I just wanted to say a couple words about Todd. We're all incredibly sad, and I know that many of you I've known him about 10 years. Some of you probably knew him longer than that. I know we're all kind of in that same place where, gosh, we were just all at the Sir Walter Awards, and I think it really does speak to a big part of the mental health crisis that we're all experiencing right now, that people are struggling with things and we just don't know about it. And I know that he really valued his relationship with all of you. I, valued my time with him, and over the years when he worked for the city, when he worked with Campo, and a lot of different things. But just again to thank you all for everything you do, and it made me take a second to realize that I want to make sure that everyone, especially that volunteers at times, knows how much I really appreciate it. The city appreciates it, because we couldn't do all the things we do without volunteers. And I know I've said that to Todd before, but I wish I'd said it again a couple weeks ago. So thanks very much for allowing me just a few minutes here and recognize Todd Delk.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to just personally echo that sentiment as well. Todd has certainly been a valuable voice on this commission. I've personally appreciated so much that he brought his perspective, his friendship, and just really observing all the ways that he was an active citizen, supporting the city, making it a better place. So we will miss him greatly. Thank you. Does anybody else want to take just a minute to say anything?
I'll say one thing. We use this kind of moment as kind of a pause moment in our own office, and it was a great reminder that, whether in the office or here on this commission, we talk about design, we talk about a lot of things, but our greatest currency is each other, and just being with each other and listening to each other, and just let's not forget that.
Well said. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Okay. So with that, we will begin our first case, AAD 2019 3626 Forks Road. That one today for us.
Thank you. This is a request for administrative alternate for section 1.5.6 build 2 at 3626 Forks Road. The intent of the build 2 regulations is to provide a range for building placement that strengthens the street edge along the right of way, establishing a sense of enclosure by providing spatial definition adjacent to the street. The building edge can be supplemented by architectural elements and certain tree plantings aligned in a formal rhythm. The harmonious placement of buildings to establish the street edge is a principal means by which the character of an area or district is defined. The build 2 range is established to accommodate some flexibility in specific site design while maintaining the established street edge. The applicant is proposing to develop a 3-story bank building within an OX3 green frontage district. The site has, as I mentioned, the green frontage, which calls for a build 2 between 20 and 50 feet from the primary street, which is 6 Forks. with a 50% a lot width required and 35% on the side street, which is Browning Place. Also 20 to 50 feet back, no parking in between the building and the street. As proposed, the building is located such that only 42% of the primary street lot width is satisfied and 23% along the side street. The applicant proposes a linear amenity area along the entirety of the Six Forks Road frontage, directly adjacent to the building, between the building and the street. Also some additional amenity areas along Browning Place within the build-to. And then when combined, that satisfied the 50% on Six Forks and 35% along Browning Place. It's suggested that the applicant provide some additional information to clarify the components of the amenity area, and I think they're prepared to speak to that here tonight. So the findings are 5. Their first one is that it meets the intent of the build-to regulations. Second, that it conforms with the comprehensive plan and adopted city plans. Number 3, that it does not substantially negatively alter the the character-defining street wall or establish a build-to pattern that is not harmonious with the built environment in the area. Number 4, the change in percentage of building that occupies the build-to area or increased setback does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety. And that number 5, any site area that would have otherwise been occupied by buildings is converted to an outdoor amenity area. The applicant is here. I'll bring it up on the screen for you.
And both projects tonight I must recuse myself from, so I'll be out there.
Hi, everyone. Jennifer Wagner, 227 Glasscock Street, Raleigh. Good to be here again and see you all, and I share your sentiments about Todd. He worked for us, and so it's hit us really hard. Appreciate the comments. So Carter did a great job going through kind of the basics of this project, and I'll just hit upon it again and kind of walk through the exhibit that's in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Essentially, sitting here, I feel that this is always the case, even though we put a lot of time into this presentation. As I'm sitting here, I thought, wow, I wish I'd put an existing conditions photo in here. So if you're familiar with the site, it is Six Forks comes right along here as you're heading up to North Hills. And this is the office park where there's quite a few doctor's offices and various things. There's a really old bank building that's sitting here currently on the site. So it's no change in use, which is why this is a plot plan. I think that was a question that had come up. Currently, it's a building that sits in the middle that is not the most attractive building in the world, and it is surrounded by parking. So it is heavily impervious, just to sort of set the stage. What we are doing here, I think, is greatly enhancing the experience along Six Forks Road. We're pulling this building up to the corner to try to meet that build-to as much as we can. As Carter mentioned, there's 2 constraints upon the site. There is the green frontage itself that requires green between the building and the street with no parking. And there's also a green belt that is part of the deed restriction. The green belt means that there can be no built elements, no parking in that area as well. So we're really confined to having to pull the building back to that 50 foot. We can't pull it any closer due to those constraints. So along Six Forks, you can see we've got the long side of the building. Along Six Forks, there is a little bit of a notch in the building, right here. Yeah. And that's why part of the building itself is not meeting some of the build-to. And the reason for some of that is to really enhance that entry, create a little bit different feeling along the street, and not just have a monolithic wall there. And then along Browning Place, there is a build-to here that we're meeting with the building itself. You can see we have 23% of the building width itself meets the build-to, and we're required to have 35%, so we're just not quite getting there. So the rest of that is being met with the amenity area that you see in that area. So on Six Forks, we have amenity going along the entirety of Six Forks Road, which is really an enhanced planting, and I'll show the images here in a moment that give a rendering and an idea of what that may look like. We do also have a wall. Let me see if I can, clear that. In this area. a little site wall that's helping to hold the grade to create a flatter lawn in front of the building, because there is a difference in elevation from the street to the building itself. So that's helping to hold that, but it's a low site wall that's not meant to create any visual deterrence of the building, and instead create a little bit of an edge is the goal there. And then, like I said, enhanced planting. We also have a 10-foot utility easement that we have to stay out of as well, which is what that yellow area is. Okay. So you can see in these renderings, this is the view from Six Forks Road of the building. You can see the little notch kind of right there in the building that allows for the door. And the planting along through here that really helps to enhance the streetscape and also gives views of the building itself, screening for the parking back in that corner. This is kind of looking back down Six Forks from the North Hills area, looking more south. And we haven't quite figured it out, but there will be some sort of signage that will be incorporated into this, and it may be built into the little site wall itself. This is on Browning Place, looking at back at the building and this side street build to area. And so you can see we have quite a bit of enhanced planting in this area. This is again looking closer at that amenity on Browning Place. So you can see, bike parking. The idea here is that the owner might have some movable seating. There's a nice walkway from the accessible parking through this area, so a nice entry. Enhanced planting to see both from inside the building looking out and from on the street back into the building, trying to keep the views open of this nice glass wall. And then a little bit closer there, looking at the amenity area, the amenity zone, sort of stone apron, and then building upon the landscape in that area. So I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. Do you see any proposed uses? I'm not asking this because I have a problem with it. I just wanted to flesh out a little bit more, like
Sure.
the green space in front of the building. How do you see that being used? Mm-hmm. So this area along Six Forks, yep. We've been talking with the owner about possibilities. They're really keen on being a member of the community, and it is a bank that is more of a local bank, and so they see themselves as a part of the community. And they've talked about having community events or even renting out some of their space for various events. There's also going to be a rooftop terrace up here. It's just on the second level, and it will have views down to the amenity areas. And so the thought is that this could be used for tents and possibly, festivals, carnivals, get-togethers. But on a day-to-day basis, it's more of a visual aesthetic piece.
Could you talk a little bit about how the proposed build-to along Six Fork matches the adjacent property build-tos, existing build-tos?
Sure, yeah. So to the south, let's see. Is there a Google Earth at all on this computer card? That would be helpful. G Drive. There we go. So you'll see that there's a similar condition of having the green belt and green frontage. There's quite a large green space on the adjacent property to the south. This is our property right here, identified with the red tag. So this is our building currently surrounded by the parking. We're pulling it up to this corner as close as we can there.
How does that relate to the building on the other side of Browning Place? It's about,
Up here?
yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is the closest building to the north. So it really is going to be pretty in line
pretty
with
in line.
that one. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Anyone else?
A question about the pedestrian access. Can you get to the front entrance walking without going through the parking lot? I can't tell exactly how that works, but it looks like kind of wraps you around the back of the building to enter.
Right. So right now we're showing it from Six Forks Road with an access to the front of the building here, front, back, it's two-sided really. And then there is a connection around to the front itself. And then as far as from Browning Place, this is something as we're going through plot plan that we will likely need to provide a connection over here to Browning as well. Yep.
So there's an entrance on the Six Forks side as well?
There is.
Okay. Can tell. And then I'm curious if any of the landscape architects have ideas for the green space. Personally, to me, it seems more likely that it could provide value as sort of a green infrastructure type space, landscaping, trees, I don't know, more so than an event space. That's kind of my personal gut feeling about it. So I don't know if there's any thoughts that you all have on how to make that more functional or flesh out some of the details of making it a useful green space.
Right. So I'll just speak before Martha might have something to add.
Yeah.
The edge here, we have planted more heavily to really hold the edge along Six Forks Road, was the thinking. And then there's more turf closer to the building to sort of keep that clean edge and view out from the building. So there also is a little bit of a drop of grade, as I mentioned earlier. So this edge that's a little more heavily planted along the sidewalk is up at the same level as the sidewalk and kind of holding that edge, and then it drops down to the building. Interested to hear any thoughts you all have.
Yeah, I was just curious if you did use that space for some sort of GI, would that work with the grades? Looks like it's pretty flat.
If we used it for what? Sorry.
Like if it was a kind of rain garden type or stormwater capture.
Yeah. So one challenge with the site is that there's currently no storm network on the site. So everything is surface drainage. We are there are two swales that come around the front of the building on the Six Forks side that we are taking water around to the north and around to the south. In order to take it across the site, we are filtering it within some of the on-site medians. And we have curb cuts through the medians to then take it to the storm network.
As a plot plan, this doesn't have any stormwater requirements.
Correct. Yep. And due to the existing impervious.
Okay. And the low point is on the opposite side of Six Forks.
It kind of goes this way down Hayworth Drive.
Oh, okay.
So we're bringing the water down this way. Yeah, the Six Forks actually kind of drains toward the building. So we're having to put a swale right here to catch that. Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we're going to table it and discuss.
Sure. Okay.
Actually, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? All right, come on up. Remember to state your name and address.
My name's Anna Hardison, 3747 Jamestown Circle. Directly, our homeowners association will be directly across and possibly affected by the North State Bank coming in. And I actually had some questions for Ms. Wagner because several, one, are we widening Six Forks Road? And if so, how is that going to affect?
Do you want to come back up and?
Sorry.
That's okay.
If-
Not with this project, there's no widening happening that we're doing.
And the reason I asked that is because there's several site limitations already with that corner of Six Forks and Browning. And the sign, that concave sign, is a huge hindrance, and that's a dangerous intersection already. There's a lot of accidents. And there's that holly bush that sits a little further back. And so if you're trying to avoid the sign, some people just kind of hang back and try to, because you have to pull out kind of far.
The aerial. Okay. Where did it go? Where's the Google again, Carter? Can you help me find the Google? Oh, wait, here we go. All right. I thought I just minimized it, but all right. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yep,
Yeah.
there it is, right? Is that the big, something you're talking about? No?
It's actually, that might be it.
I can get in street view.
Yeah, that's the crepe myrtle, actually, and the sign is probably
Underneath it.
kind of right below, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a sign, and that's a big hindrance.
Okay, that's a
the-
great point. So whatever we're suggesting would be a lot lower than that and
Great.
further back and would meet all sign permitting regulations.
Okay, and then anything about that? That's another site hindrance by the pole.
Are you talking about the holly?
She was pointing at that.
uh-huh.
The-
It's just so, that and then also that holly bush behind the Six Forks sign.
Jennifer, can you put yourself on the intersection, right where that car is, so we can see it?
Yeah,
So you're talking about pulling out right there?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be,
Looks
we'll be
like it.
removing all of that, but let's see if I can,
Because,
Go
because
back to it.
if you're trying to pull out either left or right, it's just the curve of Six Forks, it's a bad, that telephone pole, it's a dangerous place to pull
Sure.
out. And I've seen accidents.
I've almost been in a few.
Yeah.
I think with any redevelopment, though, the city's going to have some sightline requirements that they have to meet in order to be able to see those and be able to pull out a little bit better
That's right.
than they had back in that, when that was built.
Today.
Is that
Yeah,
true
so-
with just the plot plan, though? Like, if you're not doing a full,
we still have site
Doing that.
triangles on our drawings. Yep, we're meeting all that. That's right. And you can see we have a lot lower material in this area.
Okay,
But it's a good point about the sign. We'll take that into account.
okay. And, I didn't know what y'all were gonna do with the existing plants, but our HOA might be interested in some if you weren't gonna use any.
Okay, we can share that with the owner.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just
Thank you.
give you my information now.
can I ask you before you go back to your seat, another
I'll give you
question?
my card.
So the cabinet that she pointed out that's further up the way, where does that fall, especially in relationship to your new sidewalk? Because I'm guessing that's staying.
That's staying.
Yeah.
It's in the right of way. Even the sidewalk in the right of way, we're not touching in
Sure.
any way. So it's about right here. Where my
And
hand is.
from
yeah.
the plan view, is there, how does it relate with your tie-in to that sidewalk?
Yeah, I think it's about right here. Yeah. But we'll make sure that that's showing up on our survey. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't see it right now on this plan view.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's the curb cut. Okay. Yep.
Okay, now I'm going to table it, and we're going to have our discussion. Oh, is there someone else from the public? Yeah. Absolutely. Just state your name and address.
And if I may, I think I have a question for you.
Okay, I'll stay right here.
My name is Ed Patterson, and I live across the street. I'm maybe the only homeowner within 100 feet of this property. I'm straight across Six Forks Road at 3605 Browning Place.
Okay.
Did you say there would be partying going on the roof? Is that what I heard?
A party on the roof. I don't know what will be happening on the roof, but except that we're designing a terrace right here. So this would have some availability for some seating. This is a bank, so it will have
be a bank
banker's
type
hours. But, you know, there is the opportunity that they might
They could
have.
rent that out for,
They might have a community meeting that would happen there, make it available to their customers.
is there any chance I could get a standing invitation to whatever goes?
These guys about that. These are the architects. They have more connections than I do.
I'm just concerned if there is something over there that would be loud, you know.
Sure.
And
Yep.
make things less pleasant than they are now.
Yep.
And you really don't know.
I would doubt that. My guess is that this would improve upon how things are now.
Well, it will make you look better than what's there now.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
but it's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Can the architect speak to the intent of that?
Absolutely. Do you need me to come up to the?
Please, and state your name and address.
My name is Beth Mitchell, and I work with Gensler. My address is 201 Plainview Avenue in Raleigh. So the roof terrace that we're discussing actually fronts the large conference room. The ground floor of this building is the bank branch, which would be open to their customers, and then the upper floors are their personal offices. So it's more of a corporate function than it is necessarily like an assembly space for parties or things like that. It's where they would entertain potential clients. And like I said, it's adjacent to the conference room. I think employees might eat lunch out there, but I think a midnight party is probably very rare, having met this group. Any other questions about the? Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Okay, I'm going to table it. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's pretty wide open between Six Forks and the building. I think there's some real advantages to that. There are no street trees existing and no street trees required. And I think putting any more vertical elements between the building and the road probably would detract from the building and the overall feel. Martha, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think especially in light of the sight lines that we were discussing.
Your microphone. There you go. You're good. If you're going to talk, just talk into it. That's all.
I believe it's a huge improvement over what's there today, and I think, you know, personally, I think it more than meets the intent of the code and what we're here to look at today. So those are my thoughts.
Just from a safety standpoint too, I would think it's a wild improvement over what's currently there. Growing up in Raleigh, I think I've probably almost been in 3 accidents there during my life.
Wow.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those sentiments. Okay, do we want to go through the findings? Yeah. Okay. All right, the approved alternate meets the intent of the Build 2 regulations. I think we established that it does. The approved alternate conforms with the comprehensive plan and adopted city plans. I think policy LU 2.1, placemaking, LU 4.5, connectivity, LU 5.1, reinforcing the urban pattern.
7.4.
All right. The approved alternate does not substantially negatively alter the character-defining street wall or establish a build-to pattern that is not harmonious with the existing built context. I think we agree that it does not, and improves it, I think. And the change in percentage of building that occupies the build-to area or increased setback does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety, and I think we all agree that it improves it.
Yep.
And site area that would have otherwise been occupied by buildings is converted to an outdoor amenity area, and that is. So with that, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, So moving on to 8021-19, 2020 Progress Court.
I'll change it up and announce from here. This is 2020 Progress Court, the request for administrative alternate to 7.2.5C screening service areas. The intent of the landscaping regulations is to provide meaningful and well-designed screening and buffering. Tree and shrub planting should not interfere with the safe vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site. The applicant is proposing to develop a 2.27 acre site zoned IX3, which is converting existing warehouse building into office and restaurant spaces. The applicant requests an alternate to the service area screening standards, which call for trash collection areas to be located to the side or rear of buildings and screened from any adjacent property or public street right of way. As shown on the attached plans, the applicant proposes for the staff report says trash dumpsters. Was a kind of a cart corral in the original configuration. Now it's, I think, 2 dumpsters between the building and Progress Court. It would be screened with a gated enclosure and screened by landscaping elements as well around the majority of the structure. In terms of the findings, the alternative meets the intent of landscaping and screening regulations. Number 2, conformance with the comprehensive plan and any adopted city plans. And number 3, that the alternative is considered equal to or better than the standard. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant's here as well.
Any questions for Carter? Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Kristen Stanzio, 139 Daneboard Road, Durham. This is an existing warehouse building. It is a fairly industrial site. You can see from the aerial image and also in the next image, it is constrained on the site to the rear and both sides, pretty much along the property line, making it pretty much impossible to have a solid waste facility to the side or the rear. So we've placed it to the north, which is as far as it can be from the right-of-way. It's also in front of a berm between the adjacent property. And it will have a wood enclosure, which will take from some of the architecture. The architecture has some red cedar on the exterior, and we will stain it to match the red cedar on the building. When it was the cart corral, we were proposing a 6-foot tall fence, but with the proposed 3 restaurants, the cart corral was going to require too many carts, so we'll have one 8-yard dumpster and one 8-yard cardboard recycling. So we've raised the fence to 8 feet tall, and then we'll have an enhanced landscape here with various heights of shrubs and trees, mostly evergreen, to further screen the adjacent property as well as what would be seen from the right-of-way, and somewhat from the building as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one. So it looks like where it's going to be positioned, it backs up to an apartment complex. Is that right? Do you know how far it'll be between the trash dump and the apartment units?
I
Just
don't think I can tell you off the top of my head. Maybe, I know that the pad there is about 20 feet, so maybe 25 to 30 feet from the property line. And then there's a kind of a tree buffer. It's not very dense back on the berm.
Can you describe the berm a little bit?
Yes. It's not very tall. It's about 3 to 4 feet tall. It's existing. It has some existing vegetation on it. Some of it may be impacted by construction, but we've tried not to grade back there to preserve what we can. The circle with the hatch on it is the proposed tree conservation. And that's really about it. It's not very tall, enough to completely screen.
Sure. And how does the elevation, just from your memory of the apartments, to the site in this location, is it sitting up higher, is it sitting lower?
The apartments sit up higher than
Okay.
this site, and I can also pull up a street view if that would help.
Yeah, they 3-story or 2-story walk-ups, the apartments?
The apartments, it's no more than 2 stories.
2-story walk-up.
Yeah.
And the use for the building, it's a bank, it's the same?
No.
It will be, it's an existing warehouse. It will become primarily office space, and about 11,000 square feet of restaurant.
Oh, okay. So it's basically reusing the existing
It
building
is.
that's there?
Yes,
Okay.
it'll just be a renovation of the building to preserve the building, which is why we can't place the solid waste on the side or rear.
Any more questions?
No, I just like to kind of see the street view if
Yeah.
you can find it.
It's going to be hard to see back there.
Yeah.
So this is looking towards the dumpster would be located right about here.
Can you
This
zoom
is-
in on that? Can you zoom in on the trees there? Okay. And that's the berm you're referring to?
This is the berm.
And all of those trees would remain, is that what you're thinking?
The intent is to have them remain. We're not proposing to grade back there. The only tree for tree conservation, I believe, is this one.
Okay.
And then the brick in the back is the apartment complex.
So can you show us approximately on there where you would be proposing your dumpsters?
It
Just,
would
I mean,
be-
I can look at it on the plan, but it's just easier to see.
Yeah, it would be somewhere right in here.
And what is the existing material on the building that we can
Brick.
see there?
It's brick.
Brick. And is it to remain? And then you're just infilling with the cedar?
It will remain mostly brick. I think it will have a different, I think it may be painted or, but it will remain mostly brick, and then it will have red cedar on it. And this metal structure will remain. This loading dock is proposed to become an amenities, outdoor seating for the restaurant, workspace for the offices.
Essentially, like what's next door?
Anybody else?
So the turf area that's up on the northern edge of the property line, will that service that entrance right there, like so you could come out of the building and like hang out in that space?
On here or the plan?
The plan, sorry.
Right here.
Yeah.
This is from the parking, this would be an entrance into the building here. So this would be just kind of enhanced planting for that. And then as you travel down south, that's where the structure and the amenity space would be.
What's next to the dumpster, off to the side? Is
Right.
that a?
This is
yeah.
a new proposed fire hydrant
Okay.
and a generator.
Is that just a backup generator, or is that something that would be used,
Um,
you know?
I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
okay,
I'm
cool.
sorry. I
Just
apologize.
Feel for,
Will that be screened as well, or the generator?
Yes, by the vegetation shown here. It won't
Okay.
be completely enclosed.
do you know how tall that generator is? Sorry,
I don't.
you don't.
They're pretty tall generally.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah, I wonder if that, because some of those are hollies. Yeah, dwarf. Birds. That generator might peek up over that, but
That'd be.
There's an English laurel. Maybe we can,
I'm sorry, are you asking about the shrub?
around the generator.
Yeah, it's a dwarf Burford holly. They get about 4 to 5 feet tall,
Okay.
maybe 6.
the symbol's different.
I'd be more concerned that people are gonna look out the back and see that generator rather than see the dumpsters.
Or coming into the proposed entrance,
Yeah.
right past it.
Yeah.
But that's, I'm not sure.
There will be, so the fence, the 8-foot fence would be around here. And that sits back, so from, I mean, it probably would somewhat be visible from the road, but it does sit back.
Have you considered putting it in an enclosure? I know there's regulations about access to the front of it and for refueling and all of those things, but just a question.
I don't believe it's been discussed, but it would definitely be something we could discuss.
Anybody else?
I guess my concern with 11,000 square feet of restaurant, just smell is what I worry about with the dumpster.
The, go back to the plan. So this is the proposed dumpster. The restaurant space is primarily on this side of the building. I think there is one maybe back here, but the majority of this space is office. And
But
that was one reasoning for switching to the dumpster than the corrals, is just the number of corrals that we would have, attracting flies, bees, smells, so.
Yeah, well, you still have all your food waste going back to those dumpsters. You might consider something like an underground system like the Molochs that they tried over on Wilmington, because their smell is much less, much more contained, especially in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, that's not what we're here to necessarily,
it's true.
make a finding on. But at the same time, just because that is a proposed entrance to the office space, it would be a lot more desirable, I think, if you manage the smell. So it's just an idea. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And seeing there's no one here from the public, let's table it for discussion. So I think on site, when I look at it, there's not a ton of options, right? And I think they've selected for the dumpster location, probably the most reasonable one. It's furthest from the right-of-way, like the street ends before you even get to that place or get to that part of the site. And, I think what we talked about, like alternative ways to maybe handle food waste, is something that I think could be very valuable to the overall development. What do we want to talk about with that generator? I mean, technically, I'm not sure that the city requires that those be screened, but it probably, again, just for visual appeal at the entrance, I mean, it would make a big difference they're pretty big and ugly, and it might be something to.
Can the plantings baffle the noise in some way associated might be with it?
Well, I don't know, because it's really the apartments that we're worried about, right? From a noise standpoint. It won't hurt, but I don't think it's going to be a silver bullet either.
Yeah. I wonder if the screening for the dumpster can repeat or somehow connect to the generator and all become a unified thing and read well on the landscape, and then have the landscape continue to do what it's doing, which is
Further buffering it.
wrap around both of them.
Yeah. I would agree that if that's a possibility, that it would make it more appealing. I also have a little bit of concern. I want to hear your thoughts on it with the wood being the dumpster screen material. I just worry about longevity of that. Cedar is good from an exterior standpoint, but I can imagine in 10 years it looking kind of rough. And I don't know how, as a commission, you know, we feel about that. Do we want to request that it be some other material that's more durable, that requires less maintenance over time to keep it looking good?
Personally, I think that some of the alternatives probably wouldn't look much
As
better.
nice. Mhm.
So you'd end up with plastic or metal.
I've seen metal that's painted that looks okay.
Yeah.
But it's
I guess
probably a lot more expensive, I would assume, than what's being proposed.
Especially since a lot of the building's gonna have the cedar on it anyway. It's gonna weather in a similar way, so. To me, it would seem somewhat unreasonable to have trash enclosure that looks new after 10 years and the rest of the building is weathered significantly. So to me, it makes more sense to have it unified.
I think keeping the aesthetic unified is definitely a value. I just don't want it looking really junky in 10 years either, because they're maintaining the building better than they are the enclosure.
Sure, yeah.
I think the only question I have from a landscape perspective is looking at the larger area of turf right at the back property line. That's going to be pretty highly shaded. I don't know. I don't know if they got into the details of that, but a lot of turfs won't handle back there. And I wonder if there can be more of a vertical transition from the dwarf purfureds to the canopy trees that are right on the property line, maybe with some mid-story or understory evergreen trees to kind of, I'm just thinking about folks up in those apartments, in their bedrooms or in the bathroom looking out, they're, instead of seeing between the top canopy and the shrub layer, you could put something in the middle and they can have a full green screen instead of maybe a view to the top of the dumpsters or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about the use there. Like, if that's not going to be a regularly used space for tables or, you know, office use, then it might be better served as just planting area to help screen from those apartments, especially the western chunk.
Yeah, I just see it hard to maintain too. I don't imagine a normal maintenance crew doing a good job with that grass.
Anything else to discuss? Okay, well, when I look at our first finding, it's whether or not the approved administrative alternate meets the intent of the landscape screening regulations. Basically, screening requirements are that trash collection, trash compaction, recycling collection, and other similar services be located to the side or rear of the building, which I don't think we have a problem with location, and must be screened from view from adjacent property or public street right of way. So personally, I would recommend that we defer this and let them come back with some additional screening opportunities, maybe in like mid-range height, to provide that green screen from the apartments. Do you guys, are you in support of that?
I'd be in support of that.
Me too.
Is that acceptable? Okay.
Maybe just look at an elevation view of that,
Yeah, that would be-
dumpster in context with the plantings. That would be really helpful.
And maybe I don't know how far the building is along, but I mean, it'd be nice to see that it correlates with the building. With
Yeah,
the
like
cedar.
entrances or where, just
Where that
instead
cedar
of
would be
leaving it
used, I
out,
mean,
yeah.
So any information on the building design, just, we would love to see that. Okay.
It would actually be especially interesting too to get a view back from the apartments back towards the building, so we could kind of get an understanding of what the residents would be seeing.
Okay.
Necessarily, if possible.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we would like to see additional landscape screening in lieu of the turf area. We would like to see a photograph kind of from that berm looking towards the dumpster, where the dumpster enclosure is going to be located, and any information that you have on what the building's going to look like in that area would be great. And with that, do I have a motion to defer?
There was a question of whether there's could be combined screening between the
And the generator.
generators.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd like to pursue?
Yeah, if we can. I mean, I think that's a good idea. I don't know if it ties to something, but if that's something you all would be willing to look at, I think that would really improve that.
Maybe if we see an elevation of what it's gonna look like we see pictures of the dumpster, but not in context, and then you would see the generator and see how it's all gonna kind of look along.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah.
If there's any way to include the generator within the dumpster screen element, we think that would be valuable to the whole development. Okay. Do I hear a motion to defer?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. So we'll see you. Carter, can you give her, is it 21 days is the max to,
Yeah, that will be 3 weeks, but I can get it to the director that night. So, yeah,
okay. All right, so our next meeting is literally
the 3 weeks. Yeah.
the 3 weeks. Okay, so just, can you make it back to the next meeting in 3 weeks and present? Okay,
November 7th.
And I think we're saying that the location of it
is acceptable.
is acceptable.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's good with that.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. All right, so the public portion is adjourned?
Mhm.